Hi everybody, welcome to another installment of Conversations in Wire. I'm your host, James Browning. I am a sales representative here at the Soft Flex Company. We are a jewelry wire manufacturer based out of Sonoma, California. We do have a gallery that we would love to have you stop by if you're in our area. It's open every Wednesday and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So today we're going to be doing a really quick and easy wire wrap. I showed it off on our very important beater group on Facebook, and you guys had a great reaction, and so I decided to do this as the video for this week. I'm really excited. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, well, welcome back to Getting Started. I am really excited about this weave. It's so simple. It's basically two wires that are going back and forth over and under each other. And then I have a smaller gauge wire that is continuous through this whole bracelet. And it's using that continuous wire to just kind of join the two together. And it makes a really cute, like, braid, it looks like. And you can add wires to this. You could change the gauge. This is the heaviest that we offer. This is 18, but you could go up if you wanted. You could probably do the same thing in like silver silk, maybe. That would be a fun challenge. I might try that. And it really just lends itself to like stackable bangles. So here's another example of what I did. It's the same weave, so the same in and out, but then I changed the color for the continuous wrapping wire, and then I added beads to the outside. So now it's this huge bulky thing. And because it's so big, I just made it a bangle. I didn't even add a clasp to it. Okay, so let's get down to what we're gonna need today. This is really just a hand wrap, so you don't really need too many tools. We've got the cutters, so you can get those wires cut. I have a pair of bent nose, but you could use chain nose if you want. And then for making your loops at the end, a pair of round nose. And these tools are available on our website, www.softflex.com. They are part of our beginner wire wrap kit, which I advise everybody to get if you don't have the tools already. This makes it really easy and simple. So the size wire that we're using today is going to be 18 and 22. And you can change those around if you want something more delicate. For the outside wires, you could go down in size. When I say down, that means up in gauge. And then the inside, you can change the color. But I would always try and keep this at least 2 gauges below the main wrap. It lends itself to more of that, I don't know, it kind of looks like a barbed wire. I mean, if those were cut off, that reminds me of barbed wire. I don't know what you would call it though. This is a wrap that I found online doing my Pinterest searches, and I just loved it, so I taught myself how to do it. There's a lot of different permutations out there, so you could definitely go search and see if there's another one that you like. Feel free to experiment. That's what art is all about, crafting. Alright, so with our 18 gauge, we're going to cut off 24 inches, so big old 2 feet. And we're actually cutting 2 pieces of this. And I'm eyeballing this. You can be more exact. What you want is just like double the amount of what goes around your wrist. Just because you're going to be bending and looping and braiding, so that'll take up some of the slack in the wire. Okay, so I've got those. Now the other part of the wire, the 22 gauge, I'm actually going to leave on the spool. And I forgot a tool. Good thing I have my handy dandy tool chest here. But what tools do I always recommend? Nylon jaw tools. These are mine, so they are fairly used, but we do have those for sale, and they are part of the kit as well. So I'm going to straighten out my wires off camera because they're very long and I don't want to hit the camera itself. So, and the 18 gauge wire, you really do want to try and make sure that you rotate the wire when you are straightening it, because it does have bends in all different directions on that from spooling and taking it off. So just give it a good couple of whacks. Alright, so I've got that all straightened out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two ends down here. I'm just going to meet them up. And I'm going to let them cross over each other, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a little loop at the other end just by letting these cross, and I'm just going to pull them apart. And when you have a good cross section, just keep reducing that loop down slowly and try and make sure you keep it in half. Just makes your life a little easier until you have a loop about that big. I would say that's about ½ inch. Okay, now the next step is to take your chain nose or your bent nose pliers, and right where that cross is, we're going to bend it at, I'd say, a 45-degree angle, because what we want to do is we want those to uncross and become next to each other. So you may have to fiddle with it a little bit. That's okay, wire's pretty forgiving. Just so you have a simple loop and the wires are straight next to each other. Okay, this is the first step. And go ahead and do the same thing to your second wire, just so that it's ready to go when you are. And if you want to, you don't actually have to use the pliers. You could actually just bend it yourself. It gives you less of a bend, less of a concrete bend, but it's there. Alright, so we have our two loops. Now I'm going to take my 22 gauge. I'm just going to pull out a good portion. There's this piece of wire in here that keeps catching on all of my... Okay. So I give yourself maybe a yard. And because we're going to do such small wraps, you don't really have to straighten this out. But I mean, I would definitely get the big kinks out. So just make it look neat. Get my tools out of the way. All right. So we've got our 22 gauge, and we have our first little thing here. I'm just going to fiddle with it a little bit. Okay. So I'm just going to put the wire right on top and hold it down with my thumb. See? Right kind of in the middle, but not really. So, and I'm going to go over and behind. So I'm basically wrapping over. And depending upon which hand you are, the wire should be on that side of your dominant hand on the spool, otherwise it's going to get way in your way. And you can decide how many wraps you want. I'm going to do 4. Get a nice round number. But however many you want, try and end with your wire at the top. So I've got 3 now. 3. I'm doing one more. So now this is 4 wraps, but the wire is off to the top there. So the important part of that is because we want that wire to go around and around the same way and always start at the same point. Okay, now we're going to get our other loop and we're just going to thread it on the top one. Actually, to get into the habit of what's going to come next, after you've gotten everything wrapped, go ahead and take your tails here and bend them at right degrees to your work. Okay, so you should have that for your first step. Take your time on this weave, even though it's really simple. It's just a good habit to get into to go nice and slow. And there's a lot of wire, so don't let it get too out of hand. So we're going to take our wire, and this actually should be behind everything. Okay, so here is where we're at. We've got the first wire with its little pokey outy bits, okay, and then we've got our wrap. The wire is at the top, but it's behind this leg here so that it comes in right where we want it. And then I've threaded the second wire over the top, and I'm going to try and center the wrap part right here in that loop, because when I bring my wires over to wrap, it's not going to look too out of place for that second one. Now these first 2 are the most difficult part of this weave. It's just getting it basically set up. Everything else is easy peasy. And go slow with your wraps. Make sure they're nice and neat. I think I might have flipped that around on you. But we are still coming out the top. I still have 4 wraps. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing we did on our first one, and we're going to put right angles there. Okay. Okay, so this is where we take our first legs here, and we're going to gently, this is the trick of wire wrapping, you gotta be gentle with it, and make a curve. See that? Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with this other one. And the best thing to do is to grab it all the way down at the end, because the closer you are to work, the more sharper your your bends are going to be. So if you take this, it's going to be really gradual. Okay, so I like that. That's a good start. Now we're going to, where that little cross is, we're going to bend those out so that they're no longer crossed, but they're meeting. And that's going to be where our wrap goes. We're going to go ahead and do that wrap. So here's one. And don't let them squish together on you. Keep them side by side. Two. If they start to become a problem, take your chain nose and give them a squish. That flattens it out. Okay. I'm just going to snug up my wraps here. Okay. And I'm going to take these legs and kick them out. Make them do the splits. Okay, and then the top legs are always going to go on top. This is where the weaving happens. Bring it down, give it a nice curve. Now you can slowly start to graduate your curves if you want, or you can keep them kind of the same size. Okay, and I'm just bending these so that they're no longer crossed. Now, if you look, I made a mistake here. See how my wire wraps up and around the top here? We want to make sure that the wire is not creating any sort of barrier to that next wrap. So just be mindful of how your wires are going. This wasn't too big of a mistake, it's just a matter of tension and putting it where it needed to be. Gotta change the shape, so just be careful. Go slow. And you know, sometimes mistakes just actually become your project. So what started out as a mistake ends up becoming the norm, and you like it, which might be the case in this. I'm just going to flatten it down a little just to make sure that we're keeping it nice and smooth. Okay. Alright, let's kick these legs out. What's that guy's name? Van Damme. Always did the splits. I like him. Jean-Claude. That's right. We'll Jean-Claude these wires every time. And now we're just going to make a nice gentle curve. There, see, it's starting to come together now. So the cool thing about this wrap is that most of the time, if you make your curves too funny looking, the wrap itself is going to cover that up. So you'll be looking at the little wraps instead. I should also mention, when working with wire, especially when you have long pieces of wire, it's really good to have an eye out or even eye protection as to where your wires are, because I have poked myself in the glasses before. So it's possible, just be careful. And then Jean-Claude Van Damme. Oh, that sounds bad. We won't say that anymore. We'll just say Jean-Claude. And we are keeping those first legs over the second legs so that we keep going from behind to the top. It gives it that braid look. Okay, doesn't it kind of look like barbed wire? I think it does. Wasn't such a pretty start here, but you know what? That's what art is. I wonder if we could kind of bend this out a little. Eh, it's something. That's what makes it handmade. My grandfather taught my little brother and I and my grandma how to make handmade lace. And that was one of the things we always said when we were demonstrating out in public, is that the mistakes make it handmade, because machines don't make mistakes. And for consistency's sake, remembering how many wraps you did, because that consistency helps with patterns. If your pattern's off, people will notice. Okay. It's really just those first couple of ones you have to watch. So I'm going to try and finish this up really quick and get to the end so I can show you how to finish off. All right. So I have added a few more inches to this, so we're almost done. I'm just going to do just a couple more of these in case you didn't quite see the pattern. So we've got our two Jean-Claudes, just doing the splits here. So I'm taking the first set and I'm going over and I'm doing a nice gentle curve by pulling it down from the end. And then I'm pulling the other one up and I'm just taking it down to where I want it. And then since we don't want to wrap those two crossed together, we want them wrapped flat, we're going to bend them out at that cross point. Okay, and then we're going to take our 22 gauge wire that's been hanging out. We're just going to do 3 wraps. That's what I've been doing. Sorry, 4 wraps is what I've been doing. 2. There's 4 wraps. Okay. And I just squish it down if it looks like they started to twist or something. So I'm just going to take these last 2 and just split them out again. And then our top 2 are going to go over the bottom 2. See, that's under. We want to go over. Okay. And then we're just going to bend them out straight and allow our wraps to go around them. Okay, so that was my last wrap. So this should be what you have at the end. You have a long piece of braid, you've got 2 split legs, and your wire coming off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire, see how it's coming around the bottom here? So I'm going to take that and I'm going to just do 2 more wraps right on that bottom there. Okay. And then I'm going to just clip it right there at the edge. Okay, now it's a little pokey, so I'm going to take my bent nose and I'm just going to kind of squish it down. Alright, so that takes care of our 22 gauge wire. Now we've got these guys. Now I have a lot of wire left over. You probably will not if you measured it for your wrist, but if you do, you can always hang on to these or make it longer. It's totally up to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them off. I'm going to cut the top 2 of our splits, which turn out to be the bottom one of our tree. So I'm going to cut them at about 1.5 inches. That gives me plenty of room to work with, but not so much that it's in my way. Okay, and I'm going to take my round nose. Actually, for what I want to do, I'm going to cut these a little shorter. Let's go down to 1/4 inch. 1/4 to 1/2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to curl these from a little bit from the front so your hole's not too small. And I'm just going to make a loop. I do that on both sides. Okay. Now, what I wanted to accomplish was to get these over this so that the loops are taking that last wire in. Okay. Now let's do that on this side. I want it to come around the back so that my loop ends up coming forward. Okay. I may have cut that one just a little too short, but you know, it's all about playing with it. Now, basically with these last two wires, we're gonna do the same thing. These will be much easier. So we can just take these all the way down to like 1/2 inch. And then curl them into a loop. So this is going to be the loop end of my catch. Now, that was super messy, and I expect you guys to take your time and get this to look much neater than mine, but that is the gist of the ending. Kind of makes it look like little horns, but both ends are secured. Now with some of your leftover wire, you can make a little like hook for your catch by taking some wire and bending it all the way in half. And that means squishing this end part too, which is always the hardest, especially with 18 gauge. And you can always grab onto it and go at it with your straighteners to kind of get those to come back to center somewhat. I'm just going to take the end here and bend it around gently to kind of give me a hook shape. Now, if somebody has bail pliers, bail forming pliers, they have bigger, I don't know what you would call those, pinchers? Somebody knows what those are called. Feel free to give me a heads up in the comments. And that, what I was going to say is that it gives you more space to create your hoop with. So you can have like a rounded bail. I'm trying to make this fancy, but it's not quite working. But that kind of works, maybe. All right, so on this one, what I did was I took those two ends here that we are going to have when we cut this down, and I made them into loops and just attached them. So to do that again, I'm going to cut off the ends here. Spread these out just a little so I can get my pliers in there. And I'm just going to make a little eye, like making your own little drum ring. Okay, now, see, we can't connect them like that. So what we need to do is bend them down. So I'm just hanging on to that, and I'm bending this down. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of bend them apart again. So that hopefully I can get them in. Probably could have made those just a little bit wider. And now I'm going to open these up and thread them on if I can. There we go. Well, there's one. Let's just close that up. Now, opening and closing jump rings and anything like that, we open side to side, right? Oh, what did I do? I think I put the wrong one on the wrong one. I did. Okay, let's try opening that up again. Okay. Sometimes when you're doing a project, it can get away from you. And if at any time you get frustrated with your work, you just want to give up, and you say you can't do this, the best thing to do is to walk away, go have some coffee or, a walk, play with your dog, your cat, kids, whatever makes you feel calm. And when that is all done, you can come back to your project all nice and fresh and try again. This clasp is not my friend. So what I may end up doing is redoing that clasp, but you get the general idea. Now, one of the cool things about working here is that there's access to all sorts of different things, including wire. I found out that a 30-foot spool of soft flex or soft touch, whatever, makes the perfect bracelet mandrel for stiff wire, because stiff wire has a spring to it. And so if you gently wrap around your bracelet around the outside of one of these soft flex things, it looks like it's going to be too small for your wrist, but it springs back out and it's nice and round. If there's any spots, you can just go back and kind of finger tighten or shape. And remember, at the other end we have this little guy that we just need to clip right off. So I'm going to go around the back side and just clip off as close as I can to the wire. Maybe front side is better. I just don't want that poking out of the front. So try and get it close so that when you burnish it down, it's not going to be poking out and catching on clothes and stuff. There we go. Nice and smooth. Okay, so pretend this clasp works. I'm just going to use it to, see, I even put it on backwards. This whole clasp thing is just a shanda. Alright, so there it is, folks. One braided style of wrap bracelet with a few mess ups in there because we are all human and we are all beginners in some things. So do not take those mistakes to heart. Just keep going. All right. As always, thanks so much for joining me. I really have fun hanging out with you guys. If you like my videos, please hit that subscribe button at the top. That will make sure that you get notifications that we have new videos coming out. Also hit a like so that I know that you watched it and you liked it. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to leave comments in the comment section below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out and you guys have a great day. Bye.